progression, and then last but not least, accountability. So my story starts off with hope. Let me give you a little bit of background. I come from a rural area near Moundville, Alabama, called Big Sandy. If there's a Big Sandy, there's a Little Sandy, right? Okay, so that tells you it's kind of rural. And in this area, at the time when I grew up, I was what you would call poor, but we didn't know we were poor, right? We had everything that our basic needs covered, but at society standards, we were poor, but we didn't know we were poor. I just happened to be a little kid that had a lot of curiosity, and I've always been smart, so they say, right? Smart and curious. So I kind of stood out to start with in this rural area. Both parents really not educated. Father, 9th grade education. My mother, barely a GED education. So it was not something that was prevalent in my community to have a lot of education. But for some reason, God, I had parents that knew that there was something special about me in the realm of education. So these uneducated parents preached education constantly. There was like no other option. In not so educated terms, you will go to school and get your education. You will get as many words in your head as you can get. And you will not forget where those words come from. And you will use those words to help others whenever you can. That was told to me my entire life in this rural area that I came from that didn't really focus on a lot of education. So my parents always put me in a position where I could have exposure and opportunity. That's two words that I really want to kind of let sink in for a second. Exposure and opportunity. Because usually it's those two things that really kind of separate us from someone else. Exposure and opportunity. It's not that we don't have the ability to get it done, but it's exposure and opportunity. So every time those two things were available, my parents made sure that I could take advantage of those in any way possible for whatever it is that they had to sacrifice for me to do. The first time that I could cognitively think of this was when I got a microscope in Big Sandy, Alabama. A little country girl running around. I got a microscope for Christmas. It was the rinky-dinkiest little thing now that I look back at it. Plastic, but I was able to get stuff out of the ponds and put on the slides and look at them. And I said, oh my goodness, there's another world outside of where I live. And so that was the first time that I knew that there was something really special about what I was going to kind of do with my life. Inspiration. My parents, like I said, they were always been my biggest cheerleaders. And it was all based on education. And you can tell now from my profession that that is something that's kind of stuck with me throughout the years. So this whole business of inspiring, when we say someone inspires us, what does that mean? They inspire us. Sometimes you have to be careful about where your inspiration comes from. Wow. Because not all inspiration is good, right? Doesn't always give you a positive terminal end. But my inspiration came from the greatest inspirer, which is Jesus Christ. Because my parents have always been rooted in Him. It spills out of them like breath, like air. So I was always surrounded by that. So that too was not an option, not to have God in your life, not to let Him be the leader and let Him be your total inspiration for whatever it is that you do. So the next word is endurance. And this one is really, really important to me because at a very young age, I learned the art of prayer. that is an art.
Yes.
Praying is something that is so serious and so powerful. And I know accountability is the last word, but this is the first place where I learned it, was dealing with prayer. When you pray, things happen.
Yes.
So my parents prayed that this little girl gets the education that she needs to succeed. They taught me how to pray. They taught me, first of all, to not pray for yourself. Don't be selfish. Pray for others. There was a big movie that was out a while after that called Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. There was a previous version of that. And there was a quote from it that says, if you build it, they... And it was amazing because, you know, there was no outward reason or inward reason that I would have a need to get bonded with someone so early in my life, but it was divinely ordered. I feel that, and I have now. June 6th will be 25 years, so there was some substance to that, and that was the beginning of a different branching of my story, which deals with progression. When my husband and I first started out, everything has always been centered around education. Keeps coming back to this word. We both had a need to serve and to do for others. His career capacity is all about serving others that are less fortunate, disadvantaged. And me, here I was in something, as you heard Pastor Melton say, that most, not just African Americans, but at the time, most people didn't want to venture into a discipline in science. Listen to these words: cell molecular biology, microbiology, biochemistry, bacterial genetics. Sometimes it just makes your head hurt to even say stuff like that, right? So I had to figure out a way that I was going to be able to use my nerdiness to help other people.
Yes.
Didn't know how I was going to do that. How am I going to take something that is based on science and do your will and help other people? I don't know how I'm going to do that. Well, that was the first time God put his pimp hand down in my life. He says, not only am I going to show you a way to do this, but I'm going to give you a way of provision to get it done. So that starts my story with getting into the higher portion of education, being able to go to college, undergrad and grad school and PhD studies totally free. Not one red cent.
Amen.
Provision now.
Yes, that's provision.
Provision with a whole lot of favor.
Yes.
Yes.
So on this journey, you know, it's amazing how God can put his footprints and you have no idea what's going on. So the first provision, first step, is when I met Pastor Eva at Stillman, and provisions were made. I had one direction. Okay, I'm going to finish this degree. And I don't know, at the time, I think maybe I said I was going to do something crazy like teach high school. I don't know what it was. And I think, you know, God just says, okay, I'll let you think that for now. So when I got to the end of that journey, this was the first time that I actually heard God. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, God speaks to me. He tells me this. Are you sure that it's God that's speaking to you? You know, and I probably had made that statement before myself, but this was the first time that I actually heard him say, this is only the beginning. You're not going to go this way. You're going to go this way. And I'm going to make the provision, because I was ready to just, you know, find something and be done. No, you need to go further because I need you to do more. I want you to concentrate on that statement. Always. And I've heard it I get scared when I hear it because I know that something's about to change in my life. I need you to do more. So that's when the provisions came for graduate school. Well, I'm just going to get a master's. And then there was a voice, not from him, but someone else that provided a provision because of him. No, you're going to go to grad school, and you're not going to get a master's. You're going to get a PhD. I said, yeah, right. No, that's what you're going to do. And here's the money to do it. So I says, okay, right? So I go. And along the way, here's his pimp hand again. You know, I ended up getting a master's as well with the PhD in this discipline that I could barely even pronounce at times. But the biggest pimp hand movement, because he's a boss like that, my husband and I both were on a journey for a PhD at the same time.
Wow.
Crazy, right? With two wonderful kids. Sometimes we would all be sitting at the table doing homework together. All four of us. They're bringing us peanut butter sandwiches and ham sandwiches, you know, while we're doing our work, right? And then every once in a while, I would make sure that I tried to have some food for them to eat. So it was a journey that our entire family was taking together. I look back at it now, and as I'm thinking about it, I'm holding back tears because I have chills, because that is the most amazing thing when I look back at it now. Just an unbelievable journey, an unbelievable amount of security for my family and I through that journey. So we get through that. This is the progression. And then the thing that we don't like comes on the scene. Accountability. With everything that God gives you,
Yes.
and everything that He blesses you with, there is accountability. You have to be accountable for the blessings that you receive. You have to be accountable in the way that you use them to help someone else.
Right.
So that is when my progression just got out of control. Once I had this provision of this PhD that I didn't even really want, didn't even know why I was even having to get it, well, it was because of the accountability part that would come after. And so because I had this, I could reach and do more. I could reach more and do more. Every step of my life after that, accountability. Okay, here's your position. She mentioned I left straight from UA and went to Stillman. After 6 months of being a brand new professor, I became the chair of the natural science department. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. You know, I didn't know where it came, why am I doing this? But it had to do with some wonderful mentors that were in place that I think God put in my life. And that was a different journey that I didn't plan to do. Long story short, fast forward, I end up back at the University of Alabama as a faculty member in the biology department. And then here we go again. You need to do more. You need to do more. You need to reach more. So here's another door opening. I became the director of community education within community affairs for the University of Alabama. You can do more. So now I'm reaching K through 12. These are younger kids before they come in to college. So now you can do more. They're everywhere. Oh Lord, more. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a journey that's going to take a while. He says, no, I'm going to take you back because there's more where you were before that you need to do. So now I'm back in the faculty department. And there's even more because there's a different facet of my job that I do now. So the big take home of that is that I'm still doing more. I'm still answering to the accountability, which you can't escape that. You cannot escape it. And I think that that's when God will stop putting His pimp hand down in a good way, when you don't actually hold yourself accountable for the blessings that He's given you, because you have to be good stewards of that. before you get more. So accountability is that taste that you don't like in your mouth, but you just swallow it, right? And you keep it moving and do what it is that God wants you to do. All of this done, thank you, Jesus, in spite of adversity, in spite of coming from a place of poverty, but in the middle of that, having people in my life like my parents that had what my grandmother used to say, the whole Jesus, right? Within them. She would always say you need to have the whole Jesus, right? Not a part of it. You need to have the whole Jesus in you. And my parents have the whole Jesus in them, and they instill that in us, and I thank them for that. Because as I look back over my journey, and as I give my testimony this morning, I know it wasn't anything but God.
Yes.
Every step of the way, nothing but Him. And I can remember those accountability marks in my path up to now. Every time there's a pause.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's something wonderful about pauses.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they're in our English language, and we have them in our lives. Pause makes you do exactly that. It makes you evaluate where you are, how you got there, and where you're going. So you need to have a pause in your life sometimes. And whether you give yourself one or not, guess what? God is the master of pauses. He has an amazing way of throwing out some crazy pauses. And sometimes they're a lot longer than we like. Sometimes they're a lot shorter than we like. But we need a pause because the pause gives us time to concentrate and meditate on Him. Gives us clarity. And then you can move on to the next step that He wants you to go to. And I will say this, and I'm going to end. You know, I could have come up with a whole lot of excuses through my journey. There's so many. We just don't have the time for me to give you the whole story. But there's so many reasons that I could have said, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to take a different path. This is too hard. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to listen to all the naysayers. I can't do this. But God is the ultimate eliminator of excuses. He's the ultimate eliminator of excuses. And He's so good at eliminating because He controls it all.
Yes.
He is the best eliminator of excuses because you can do anything with God.
Yes.
Nothing is impossible. My discipline is so logical, but it also has a fast, and I think that's why I love it, that nothing, and once again, thank you so much for listening to my story. I thank God for giving me the ability and the nerve to get up here and give my story to others because we all have accountability with our stories.
Yes.
The reason why you have a story is because you are supposed to tell that story to someone else as a form of encouragement. It doesn't matter how you say it, just as long as you say it.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be grammatically correct. Just say it because others need to hear it. God bless you. Thank you so much for allowing me to come this morning.
Amen.